6 years old at that point. First of all, the Big Bird experience is rare. Big Bird doesn't, hold on, too much here. The Big Bird does not show up everywhere. So it becomes this exclusive thing where Big Bird had lunch with my daughter. And it was just an emotional time in our lives. And she still to this day talks about it. So she is what's referred to as she's a wish kid. Once a wish kid, always a wish kid. And because my kid is so incredibly eloquent and is really, presents herself very, very well on stage, she's often asked by Vermont Make-A-Wish to go to events because they do need fundraising. It requires money to send families for trips like this or to buy, you've seen the wish stories. So this is real for us. This is real. And I'm trying to imagine what it would be like for generations of kids not to grow up with Sesame Street. PBS Kids, another show, another channel. There used to be a show on PBS Kids, I'm not even sure if it's still on, called Kipper, which is how our dog got its name. It meant so much to her and to my boys that she named her dog Kipper. So this is real. Is my mic not connected, you guys? Can you not hear me? So cruelty is the point, right? It makes no sense to me why you would do something like this. Again, I'm just trying to imagine generations of children not being able to grow up with Sesame Street, or without public radio. Just because NPR has in the mind of the fascist behind the Resolute desk that they've said bad things about him and hurt his fifis. So we can hear you though? Not through my mic? What do you mean not through my mic? That doesn't make sense. I don't know. I give up. The sound is coming through the mic in your device. What are we talking about here? That doesn't make any sense, guys. Everything is connected as it's supposed to be. I don't know. I'll just navigate through. Sorry. So again, it's real. We'll talk about this more, but I do want to get into our topic today. I'll bring up our friend Felice. She disappeared. Okay. Sounds fine. Sounds like it's through my mic, guys. I don't know what's going on. Okay. All right. She's back. So I'll change our topic. I'll change our background. Good morning, friend. Hang on.
Good morning. Let me get my background.
Okay.
I can hear you. Can hear you fine. There's just a little bit. It's just a little, but it's fine. There's nothing wrong with your mic. If you can still hear me. Just finding my green screen. Green screen.
Okay. That might fix it. There it is. Okay, got it. Okay, that was weird. Not sure why. I just reset it. Okay, I'm going to do this real quick. Change this. Go here. Do that. All right. So thank you guys for letting me do that. I appreciate y'all. We do need your help, obviously, getting out to the FYP so we know that creators are... Okay, that's better. Now it sounds back to normal. Got it. Thank you, guys. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for allowing me to do my whole little public broadcasting and NPR thing. It's sad. It's emotional for me. It's a personal connection, like so many people have a personal connection. Good morning, friend. How are you today?
Yeah, and just to add to that, I also love PBS, but it is unconstitutional. There's no legal way for him to do this. I mean, it is completely. I was listening to a constitutional lawyer talk about how, these provisions were formed by Congress, and specifically, like, the president cannot defund PBS and NPR. So there will be a legal fight. I mean, exactly. I mean, I'm just
Constitution, Felice. I mean,
well,
what's that?
I mean,
That's
well, I'm not to say, I know, I totally get it. I'm just saying technically. And do you remember a while back when the governor of Maine was in the White House, in the Oval Office, and Trump started like talking to her and she's like, see you in court, like, cause over trans athletes,
Correct.
She just won that.
Won that case. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, I mean, whether Trump ignores the courts,
I agree. So everybody, again, thank you, Felice, because friends, Felice gets up super freaking early to do this with us every week. So please, for her and for the amount of work that she does, our topic today came from her big brain. So we're going to get into that in a little bit. Her gigantic brain, not just big. But please tap like crazy. There's a gifting goal today. Please consider tributing. It's a bird. So if you support public broadcasting, do the bird gift. And don't forget about our pay apps. They're above Felice's head. Also PayPal as well. I think your PayPal is the same, I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't do PayPal. I mean,
Okay,
I don't
gotcha.
use like tip jar. Yeah, this is my Cash App and Venmo. That's Fax's website where he wants subscriptions. Let's tap the screen and get to 100K as fast as possible. We have a ton of interesting things to talk about today.
We really, really do. So so again, thank you guys for letting me do that this morning. I just think the importance of public broadcasting should never go overlooked. It has helped educate generations of people, yours truly included. And it's important. So we're going to get into economic narcissism today. There's a great quote that Joe Biden talked about. He says, don't tell me what your values are. Show me your budget. And it's really, really true. So I think what we're going to do this morning is we're going to go through the budget that was announced on Friday from the White House. By the way, there's no reference to no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security. None of that made it in there. Shocker. Really, really funny how that didn't make it in there. Big surprise.
What?
Yeah, I know, right? Seriously.
What?
So,
MAGA was bamboozled yet again. I'm shocked.
Exactly. I think before we do that, though, I think we do need to play some sound that was uttered, I should say, from the twice impeached, four-time indicted, sexually abusing fraudster, convicted felon, when asked about whether or not he feels like it's necessary to, uphold the Constitution, for example. So he had to sit down with Kristen Welker as they discussed his 100 days. And this sound is a little disturbing, but it should not surprise anybody.
Due process. Do you agree, Mr. President?
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know.
The Fifth Amendment says.
I don't know. It seems it might say that, but if you're talking about that, then we'd have to have 1 million or 2 million or 3 million trials. We have thousands of people that are some murderers and some drug dealers and some of the worst people on earth, some of the worst, most dangerous people on earth. And I was elected to get them the hell out of here, and the courts are holding me from doing it.
Even given those numbers, don't you need to uphold the Constitution of the United States as president?
I don't know. I have to respond by saying again, I have brilliant lawyers that work for me.
Okay. Just to be clear, the presidential oath of office reads like this. I, insert your name, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So, fascist much? Anyway, we've got some more to play.
That whole
but
interview is fascist. I mean,
oh my
that
God.
whole interview is out of control. If you're wondering what that's from, well, it's a pre-recorded interview that aired yesterday morning. It's Kristen Welker, again, letting Trump tell a series of pathological lies for hours. And the most fascinating part, though, is when these interviews happen, get the transcript, right? The transcript versus what they aired. And I'm saying this because Donald Trump is suing 60 Minutes for what they allegedly edited out of their interview with Kamala Harris, even though they offered the same equal time to Trump And what is not played in that, which Midas Touch, I think, clipped the entire thing.
They did.
3/4 of it is not even included in what they aired on TV. And it's the craziest parts.
Yeah, but it's just the Constitution, Felice. No big deal. All right. So before we get into our topic today, economic narcissism rooted in capitalism and vice versa, let's go through the budget, because I think it's really, really important, because it speaks to exactly what it sort of is that we're talking about. And remember, as we kind of go through this, remember some of the elements of fascism. It's about military power, enforced corporate power, enforced nationalism, ultranationalism. There's things throughout this budget that you'll hear. And then we're going to talk about reconciliation a little bit. She and I were texting back and forth early, and I could not find the date, but we'll talk about what the reconciliation process is, in case people don't know what that is. But so let's just kind of jump in. So the budget
I'm going to
proposes,
get my phone really quick. I just have to get
for
my
it.
other phone, because I'm going to say, I'll put this as a gift article and put it in my Discord, because the article we're reading off of.
Gotcha. The budget proposes to cut what is known as non-defense discretionary spending by $163 billion, by about 23%. The category covers programs such as education, science, housing assistance. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's get in. At the same time, Trump is seeking $1 trillion in defense spending, a 13% increase. So we're going to go through the various departments that are highlighted here. While the cuts are unlikely to become reality, Congress has rejected many of Trump's previous requests. The budget is an important signal of the administration's priorities and suggests a major funding fight ahead. Here's how the Trump administration's budget request looks for key agencies. Let's start with the Department of Agriculture. 2025 budget was $27.3 billion, $22.3 billion for 2026. That's an 18% drop. The Agriculture Department, which oversees various farm, ranching, and forestry industries, regulates food safety and nutrition labeling, and manages welfare programs such as free school lunches and food stamps, would see cuts of around 18%. The cuts target projects deemed wasteful or ineffective. Those that the administration says push, wait for it, woke programming related to climate change and or diversity, equity, and inclusion, and several forest management and conservation programs in favor of boosting timber production. The budget also calls for small increases in funding for the Food Safety Inspection Service and rental assistance grants. Here's some of the key proposed changes. Cut $721 million in funding for rural development programs, including eliminating rural business programs. Keep this in mind when you hear this. A lot of his voters, we know the map. We know that rural communities, by and large, again, not a monolith, but by and large, vote Republican. So this is a direct cut to them. Eliminating rural business programs, single-family housing, direct loans, self-help housing grants, telecommunications loans, and rural housing vouchers. The administration says some of the programs are unpopular, too costly to deliver, or available through the private sector. Interesting that they are the ones that are making the determination that the programs are unpopular.
And anytime you hear the Agriculture Department, that is SNAP, right? I mean, that's
exactly
primarily what they are trying to do, is take food assistance that will particularly be in rural and red states. I mean, per capita, where is it happening the most? Away from poor people. It will not even come close to reaching the amount to pay for the tax cuts for billionaires. Again, unless you're making over $360,000, you are not getting a tax cut. There are no tax on tips. There's no tax on Social Security and all the other lies. None of that's in the budget. This is just offsetting rich people, consolidating wealth.
Do you remember when there was a series of forest fires, Felice, and the twice impeached, 4-time indicted, sexually abusing fraudster convicted felon said that we should just rake the forest floors, right? Like, look at other countries and how they just rake them, right? Well, it'd be difficult to do that when you want to make cuts to forest management, research and conservation programs, citing oversight issues and alignment with President Trump's March executive order to boost timber production. Keep in mind, as we discussed earlier, the importance of public broadcasting and, in national public radio, well, the importance of public lands like national parks, for example. So instead of raking the forests, and actually using monies to actually invest in conservation, nope. You just want to go and clear cut Yellowstone. Makes perfect sense. Eliminate the commodity supplemental
that's
food program.
How he says that's his answer to us needing timber too. Instead,
exactly.
things are breaking down with Canada. If you don't know, Trump is planning on chopping down like all of the forests on federal lands. So in case you were enjoying oxygen or anything like that.
Beauty, peace of mind, nature, things like that. Eliminate the commodity supplemental food program, which funds food for low-income seniors. It would be replaced with MAHA food boxes, Make America Healthy Again food boxes, referring to Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy's slogan to Make America Healthy Again. Yeah, that's going to work. And then eliminate the McGovern-Dole Food for Education program, which buys U.S. agricultural products and donates them as foreign aid. This is all part of USAID funding specifically. The administration says it's neither necessary or efficient as support for U.S. farmers. So just that piece alone, that's an 18% cut to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And at the top line, they say, again, quote, woke programming related to climate change or diversity, equity, and inclusion, and several forest management and conservation programs. I don't recall rural development programs as woke. I don't think cuts to forest management would be considered DEI, nor does supplemental food programs like SNAP. I get it. You don't want to feed the kids. Right, especially brown and black kids. We don't want to feed them.
The kids are just lazy, Steve. That's what you have to remember. You have to weed out
forgot.
the lazy 3-year-olds from the industrious ones, right? If 3-year-olds are doing their job and they're not lazy, this won't affect them.
That's right. They're
You're
lazy
just not
until we
saying
lower
it right.
They're lazy until we lower the child labor laws so they can go back to work.
So we get the 3-year-olds back in the factories, then we'll feed them there. That's what you're not thinking about.
I forgot. That's right. They'll get their half hour for lunch with their little lunch pail.
Half hour? What? No.
Right, 15 minutes.
10 minutes.
Well, I was going to say they could have a Big Bird lunchbox, but since PBS is going to be gone, they're not going to be able to have those. So we're all fucking screwed. All right, let's go to the Commerce Agency. This is the Commerce Department.
Almost to 50K. Tap the screen. Let's get Steve to 100K. Thank you guys so much.
2025 budget, $10.2 billion for commerce. The proposal for 2026 is $8.5 billion. That's a 16.5% reduction. The department, which oversees a broad array of federal policies on business and economic development, including promoting trade, conducting scientific research, and managing industrial standards, would see its budget cut by half under the White House proposal. The administration's budget calls for cutting more than $1.5 billion for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Weather. And strips funding from other agencies for projects, again, that push a, quote, radical climate agenda and discriminatory DEI practices. Key proposed changes. Terminate $1.3 billion in NOAA's funding that are climate dominated, they say, including educational programs and funding for environmental nonprofits like the Ocean Conservancy. It also cuts $200 million for the procurement of weather satellites and infrastructure. So we don't want to let people know if there's a pandemic or a potential epidemic, and we don't want to let folks know if tornadoes are coming or hurricanes.
Like part of that insane interview that was done with Kristen Welker on Meet the Press that aired yesterday was Trump saying, what do you mean bird flu? Like Trump again tried to lie about the price of eggs, and he's saying it's 80% down. Yeah, the opposite is true. And then she's true. And he's like, we have the same bird flu Biden had. The difference now is, even though Trump is trying to hide scientific data from people, the bird flu has now hopped. What is it? I think it's like 5 different species now.
I think it might be at least 5.
Yeah, I was listening to a virologist talk about it. But Trump doesn't know that. Trump doesn't even understand the difference between a virus and bacteria. So,
well, Felice, do you know why we know about the bird flu? It's because we had funding to find the bird flu. We had research that was done so we could understand that it was hopping from species to species, right?
And while we're talking about this budget, it's just health. What Steve's talking about, research on health and wellness and all sorts of medical research actually generates revenue for our economy. For every dollar we spend as taxpayers, we generate $2.56. That's what you call an ROI. So whenever, if
Exactly.
you ever hear MAGA and Alive saying, oh, why are we investigating reproductive cycles of wombats? Well, that's just a sign that you have no idea how science works and how that could benefit and lead to medicine, not only that could save people's lives, but also that could make us as taxpayers a lot of money and stimulate our economy. That's part of the reason it's a huge part of the reason they are projecting our economy to contract. The discontinuation of medical research.
Do you follow Gary Does Economics on YouTube? Have I sent you stuff before?
Oh yeah, we on one of these lives. I followed it because of you. Yeah,
he's awesome, and he talks about what you just discussed about the investments, like SNAP, for example, feeding kids, and the return that you get when you, I don't know, feed people, how they become productive members of society. Right?
It's the same with Head Start. It's the same. Do you know that let's say if you, let me help you, Magda, because I know your brain not working so good. Can everyone share the live with 10 people? Or if you don't have someone to share it with, just push the arrow button on the far right and push the copy link button and tap the screen. Let's get some more people in here. Magda should learn about how we're about to go bankrupt because they can't read.
Classes,
but yeah, like with
Felice,
Head Start, there are studies, but Magda would have to read and understand basic math in order to grasp this. That when Magda, you make this argument, I don't want to pay for anyone else. Yeah, that's why you invest in pre-K, because studies show children who have a pre-K education and start earlier have a lifetime earning potential of hundreds of thousands of dollars more and will not be dependent on the rest of society to take care of them. We make a small investment initially to drive upward mobility and economic upward mobility. So then they are not dependent on us, but you would have to be able to read to get that.
Right. And by the way, they contribute to capitalism. They have more earning power, right? There's the cycle. Invest early. Plant the tree. When was the best time to plant the tree? Yesterday was. Okay. So this is the Commerce Department. So another key proposed change, eliminate the Minority Business Development Agency for inserting, quote, equity into its programs and cutting around $1 billion of combined funding for that agency. The Economic Development Administration, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and International Trade Administration. Okay, sure. Add $134 million for fair trade and trade enforcement, the only increase in the budget from 2025. The majority of the increase is allocated for the Bureau of Industry and Security, which regulates the export of sensitive goods for national security purposes. Money will also be used to address supply chain and sourcing risks and boost America's industrial and manufacturing base. Now, if I follow the train of logic here, you wouldn't need to address supply chain and sourcing risks if your tariff policy didn't blow up supply chains. Like, make it make sense. Make that make sense.
Oh, since Nutlick's running the Commerce Department, I don't think it's going to make sense.
That's right, your buddy. It always makes you laugh whenever you say that.
Howard Nutlick is the Secretary of Commerce. He's got it, though. He's got it.
He's the same
guy. I found the funniest, I think someone sent it to me because they thought it was serious, but it's like satire. There's this news report, it's kind of like The Onion, and it said which it's true in reporting that China will not speak to Trump. That Trump is implying that he's in talks with China, he's not in talks with China. But there was this this satirical news article that came out that said that Trump is being placed on hold by Xi Jinping and they're playing Obama speeches.
Oh, that's the best. Oh, by the way, I can't believe I forgot to do this. Happy Cinco de Mayo. I meant to do that something earlier and I completely forgot. I had something prepared and I completely forgot about it. So maybe we'll do that before the show ends. But happy Cinco de Mayo, everybody.
You had something prepared, like a hat dance?
Kinda. Yeah. Nobody wants to see me dance, but that's a different conversation. That's for Facts After Dark. We'll save that. All right. Defense Department. Shocker, friends. They want to increase the budget. Budget for 2025 was $848 billion. The proposal for 2026 is $961 billion. Let's just round it up to $1 trillion. That's a 13% increase. Trump administration is promising to increase defense spending in line with its national security goals of more effectively competing with China and reinvesting in America's defense and manufacturing might. but its proposal fell far short of what Republican hawks have demanded. Rep. Mike D. Rogers, Republican of Alabama, chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, said he was concerned the budget, quote, does not reflect a realistic path to building the military capability we need to achieve President Trump's peace through strength agenda. Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky said the United States, quote, cannot expect our allies to heed calls for greater annual defense spending if we are unwilling to lead by example. So a 13.4% increase apparently is not enough for the Warhawks. Apparently not. So here's some of the proposed changes. Increase the top line Defense Department funds by $113 billion, which officials said would bring spending roughly $1 trillion. But critics accuse the administration of using accounting gimmicks and said the plan would not actually increase spending without counting another budget proposal now under consideration by Congress. Also, to cut environmental, scientific, and green energy spending within the Defense Department. Again, think about, so far what we've gone through are cuts to commerce. We talked about cuts to agriculture, so what our government is telling us, remember, what Joe Biden's line was, don't tell me what your values are, show me your budget. So the budget from the Trump administration is prioritizing defense spending to the tune of $1 trillion, cutting SNAP benefits, cutting public education, no more counting with the count. A one, and a two. That's Lawrence Welk.
Which is so minuscule. Like the money
exactly.
to fund PBS, that's because Trump doesn't want anyone getting the truth, right?
Correct.
Or being educated in general. Upward mobility, education, fascist authoritarians fear it. He does not want
Correct.
people learning. That is his enemy, right? But think about the defense. So again, this whole lie of here comes Doge about to root out waste for $2 trillion. $2 trillion in waste, Felice. Fraud, and abuse. The real waste, fraud, and abuse that exists in our budget, right, is in defense. We're paying $78,000 for a soap dispenser. I mean, this is real waste, fraud, and abuse. We did not root out any. We approved the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA. Not one person objected to it. Period. Yep. I mean, of Republicans. Correct. This golden dome, we're putting a dome over our country because Trump wants to what? It's not that we need one necessarily. There's a bunch of people who want those military contracts. A bunch of billionaires are about to get filthy rich, building some ridiculous ballistic missile system like Israel has.
Exactly. So again, keep this in mind, as Felice pointed out, the promise from Doge was $2 trillion. Then they said, well, it's actually going to be $1 trillion. Now it's like $150 billion in savings, and we still haven't seen the receipts. And keep in mind, government agencies audit themselves. That's why they have inspectors generals to make inspectors general. That's why they have that position, so that they are identifying waste, fraud, and abuse in said programs. So here we are again. Show me don't show me your values. Show me your budget. The budget of the administration is based on what they needed to tell their base: peace through strength, tough guy, Rambo. Who cares about feeding kids? You can miss me with your fucking pro-life bullshit, because they don't give a shit about children. Period. Stop.
And Doge, and that's what when we're talking about, when we move into the topic of, capitalism is economic narcissism. I'm not talking about something I made up in my head. This is psychological studies that have been done, and really heightened around World War II, when, some of the foremost psychiatrists in the country were at the Nuremberg trials.
Yeah. Yeah. If
you understand what that was about, I mean, this was the onset of this. And when neoliberalism is essentially when we moved from hey, socialism, what little socialism there was in America, from the collective to capitalistic privatization, monopolies, to step on people to get up. And that is what this budget is. That's what we are drawing the conclusion of. We've had a lot of people, people are like, how can this be happening? How can this be happening with Trump? We always talk about how history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. This has happened once before. There are thousands of psychological studies done as a result of collective narcissism, group narcissism. economic narcissism. They say the only difference between economic narcissism and narcissism, it's one is, talking about economics and one is talking about society. Like, there is no difference. It's a disease manifesting in Western civilization and proliferating.
The reason that we can have this conversation with you guys, because we collectively have the smartest chats on TikTok. No doubt about it. So this is heady stuff, but we know you guys are so freaking smart, especially those of you that are watching in Felice's time zone. It's like 5:30 in the morning and you're already like, let's go, class is in session. Here's my apple. Okay. Why don't we just finish this and then we'll get into our topic, because this is going to be some heady stuff and I want you guys to be able to pay attention. But Education Department, $78.7 billion budget 2025, cut by 15% down to $66 billion in 2026. The proposed budget would slash funding from programs that support K through 12 schools and colleges, seeking to codify cuts the administration has made unilaterally and to fund programs it views as supporting, again, DEI. The proposal takes aim at many of the same higher education programs President Trump tried to starve or end in his first term, including one that funds childcare on campuses and others that prepare low-income students for college. Key proposed changes: slash $4.5 billion from grant programs that aid public schools and consolidate what's left into a $2 billion program with few strings attached. Reduce the federal work study program, which helps students work their way through college, by about 80%. Cut funding from the for the Office of Civil Rights, which investigates claims of race, sex, and other discrimination in schools, by a third. And preserve current funding levels for programs that aid high poverty schools and students with disabilities, and an increase for a program that aids charter schools. So cut funding for public schools, eliminate civil rights protections, but yet increase funding for charter schools. Charter schools technically are private schools. They don't have to admit everybody. So who suffers the most? Again, people in marginalized communities, especially brown and black kids, period. Energy Department, 2025 budget, $49.8 billion, a 9.4% cut down to $45.1 billion. The administration is proposing to gut billions of dollars in incentives and subsidies for clean energy programs aimed at speeding the transition from fossil fuels. They want to cut programs so that we will still continue to lag behind China. China, by the way, is building bridges for boats, and we are thinking about building a ballroom in the White House. That's a different conversation. We'll get to that later. The cuts take aim at EVs, carbon dioxide removal technologies, and grants to develop new clean energy innovations. Key proposed changes: terminate all spending under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, a signature Biden area. Again, terminate all spending. Remember what Trump ran on in his first time. He ran on infrastructure. He said, I'm a builder, I'm a developer. No one knows more about infrastructure than I do. No one knows more about construction than I do. Not only could he not get it done, now he's so fucking petty that he's going to cut all funding for those programs. Every state in America, blue states, blue districts, red districts, blue towns, red towns, are all seeing investments from monies being spent or allocated for the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. I have in my little state. There's been a horrible bridge for decades. They finally got federal money and they are working on it. So imagine what happens. Yeah, you're right. He wants to use money to reopen Alcatraz. I saw that too. So here we go. Right. So again, can they do it? Sure. Money that already been appropriated. They just won't continue to fund it.
Alcatraz is the most expensive prison to ever be run in the history of U.S. prisons. It also only houses 336 people. It's another one of the dumbest ideas in history by your orange leader.
That's right. So what did you say, John? You said they shut off an Alcatraz and put you in it? Okay, John. I don't know what that means. Anyway, the $15 billion
burn. Good
one, John. Good, John. Kisses. Love to see you, buddy. The $15 billion cut from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act would cancel the $7,500 subsidy for purchases of EVs, eliminate grants for carbon capture technology, and zero out incentives for production of clean vehicle batteries. Cut energy efficiency and renewable energy programs by $2.5 billion, taking aim at what the administration calls, quote, the Green New Scam. climate change related activity. Among programs targeted for elimination are the Justice 40 initiative to steer climate and infrastructure investments to low income and minority communities, as well as programs that promote consumer product efficiency and safety. Don't tell me your values, show me your budget. Cut $1.5 billion from the Office of Sciences, which takes aim at research into climate change and clean energy, which the administration dismisses as part of a Green New scam. So I was thinking about this high level. These programs, when they're talking about climate change and NOAA, it's not that they don't believe these things exist. They just don't want the American public to know about it. They don't want you to know the impacts of climate change. They don't want you to know about the increase in storms and the strength of storms and in the frequency of storms. They don't want you to know the impact of carbon and polluting our air and our water. And that's why they also want to cut regulations in various agencies. I don't know, like one called the EPA, for example, because they don't want the American consumer to know.
This one hurts too. That's the next on the list. It's the worst. I mean, it's
Exactly.
not. I mean, there's so many to choose from, but this one's particularly disgusting.
This really bad. The EPA, $9.1 billion, the Environmental Protection Agency, $9.1 billion in 2025, cut by 54.5% down to $4.2 billion. The proposal calls for a nearly 55% cut to the budget of the Environmental Protection Agency, which is tasked with protecting the nation's air, water, land, and climate. If Congress approves this request, the EPA would be forced to operate on its smallest budget since 1986, according to agency records. Key proposed changes: cut $254 million for cleaning up toxic waste sites under the Superfund program. Why? Why?
Do you say
What would
that?
be the reason to do that?
Let me just everyone really internalize that. Cut $254 million for cleaning up toxic waste sites. This is environmental teism. Poisoned areas where corporations, which I mean, like I'm saying, it's group narcissism that have high level prevalence of psychopathy, are poisoning people.
Exactly.
Corporations are poisoning people, and they're saying the pittance that our tax dollars spend trying to clean that up and protect people's futures and livelihoods. Let's cut that in half.
And think about that, because when we hear our friends on the right talk about, oh yeah, got rid of all those regulations. Well, when they're talking about regulations, this is what they're talking about. They're talking about so polluters can't pollute, and you're celebrating that. And by the way, when they're looking for these Superfund programs and these Superfund sites, a lot of that is in rural areas. They're not inhabited by a lot of people, which again, where a lot of Trump voters are, poisoning the water, poisoning the land, poisoning the air. When the land is poisoned, that means crops are poisoned. That means animals who are eating the crops and or the grass when it's not cut out, when they take down all the forests. This is what happens. This is the impact of this shit. All right, slashing $235 million in the EPA's Office of Research and Development, which the Trump administration may shutter altogether, and then eliminate $100 million in environmental justice programs, quote, that enabled a witch hunt against private industry, according to a White House fact sheet. Eliminate $100 million in environmental justice programs. So basically offering monies to go after polluters. Nope, don't want to take that away. Nope, can't have that either. Okay, DHS, this is another one, Department of Health and Human Services. 2025 budget was $127 billion, a 26.2% cut. The 2026 budget will be $93.8 billion. The department oversees health insurance programs such as the ACA, Affordable Care Act, which Trump has pledged to run, even though he has said he would prefer to overhaul it. Remember, tried the first time. Tried to repeal and replace the first time. Famous vote on the floor from John McCain. Didn't happen. Concepts of a health plan. There is no concept of a health plan. They do not have one. Cutting the ACA. Yours truly is on the ACA, which means millions of them. I forget the number. I think it's 45 million Americans, something like that, would immediately lose health insurance. All right. HHS and its sub-agencies are also responsible for administering Medicare and Medicaid. Remember how they're telling you that we're not going to make individual cuts to Medicare and Medicaid? Well, this is the agency. This is the agency that does it. Department of Health and Human Services. This is the administrative agency for Medicare and Medicaid. If they're looking for cuts ranging in the tune of, what's the dollar amount here? Roughly $30 billion. You can't do it unless you go after the Medicaid, Medicare budget, because that is the single biggest line item within that particular agency. So sorry.
And who's in charge of Medicaid now? Dr.
Dr.
In my opinion,
Oz.
someone who's exemplifying, what they call the dark triad, Machiavellian, sadistic, psychopathy,
Right.
and narcissistic traits. I mean,
Thanks, Oprah.
Thanks,
a lot,
Oprah. I was telling somebody about that. And they're like, what? Oprah's the reason Dr. Oz and Dr. Phil are here? I'm like, yes.
Yes. Exactly. She's why we see them every single day. Okay. So the process, let's see, cut the NIH budget. Let me finish this paragraph first. Trump's budget proposes a 26% reduction to the department's $127 billion budget, most of which would come from a deep cut to the National Institute of Health. Great. Cut the NIH budget by about 40% to $27 billion. The proposal outlines a major consolidation and reorganization of the institutes focused on disease research. It justifies dramatic downsizing by saying the NIH, quote, has broken the trust of the American people. I got a little personal this morning when I talked about public broadcasting and the impact it's had on my life. This particular, what they're talking about here, focused on disease research, cutting $200 million from pediatric cancer research. My daughter is a direct benefit of federally funded pediatric cancer research. I'm not going to say that she may not be with us, but part of the research money that was used to help identify her rare occurrence of cancer came from federal funding. You put two and two together.
Also, because this is MAGA, let's just say you have no empathy and you don't care that Steve's child's life was saved as a result of federal funding towards pediatric cancer research. Again, it's also important to note, just like the idiocy of destroying the IRS, right? What medical research does is it gives us a return on investment. For every dollar we spend, we get $2.56 back. That's good. So it doesn't matter it doesn't matter that you don't understand science. It doesn't matter that people could name the name of a study and you're like, why am I spending money on that? No, none of that matters. It's a positive return on investment. We develop patents and then we sell them to pharmaceutical companies.
Are you saying that investing in the health of our citizenry is a good thing?
If you love capitalism, like you claim, MAGA, then why would you not keep your slave labor workforce healthy?
Keep them healthy. That's right. Keep feeding the horses, as they say.
You'd have to think to get there.
Okay. Cut the budget for the Centers for Disease Control, CDC. And think about this. I want to talk about this real quick. So part of the strategy that the right has, the Christian nationalists and the fascists and the neoliberals specifically, is to identify the CDC as a target. The CDC is the problem. The CDC is the one that gave you bad advice. The CDC mandated the reason I lost my job. So now it's easy for them when they message that, yeah, we're going to cut the CDC, so they were the problem. Okay, cool. Cut the budget for the CDC and prevention by at least 40% to around $4 billion. It would shrink the focus of the agency to emerging and infectious disease outbreak investigations, meaning not in advance, only as it happens. So they want them to be reactionary and not proactive. It seeks to eliminate duplicative DEI or simply unnecessary programs, including all the chronic disease programs, such as for smoking, heart disease, diabetes, and cancer prevention. Cool. Provide $500 million in funding for Make America Healthy Again initiatives to focus on areas such as nutrition, physical activity, and environmental impacts on health. Yeah, that all makes perfect sense. Okay, Department of Homeland Security. This one's got a big increase. Shocker. $65 billion budget in 2025, up to $107 billion in 2026, a 65% increase. Trump wants to increase funding to the Department of Homeland Security by $43.8 billion while cutting hundreds of millions of dollars for FEMA's non-disaster grant programs and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Hey, Felice, cybersecurity, that's interesting. You know, it's funny when you want to eliminate agencies that help root out fraud, and then the administration, especially the commander-in-chief, is using cyber tools such as meme coins and a whole bunch of other shit to enrich himself. Of course, we don't want an agency that has the ability to investigate that stuff because that would just make too much sense. Yeah, make too much sense. The budget also proposes slashing FEMA's Shelter and Services Program, which provides additional funding for, quote, sheltering and related activities to non-citizen migrants following their release from the Department of Homeland Security, DHS. Don't tell me your values. Show me your budget. Key proposed changes. Add $43.8 billion towards enacting Trump's mass deportation push, which is violating constitutional rights, constructing the border wall, and bolstering Secret Service protective operations, according to the White House. The funding would need to come from Congress. Of course it would. Cut non-disaster FEMA grant programs by $646 million, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Agency by $491 million, and eliminate FEMA's Shelter and Services Program. Reduce funding for Transportation Security Administration screening as well. So TSA gets cut. TSA is already understaffed. TSA gets cut. We apparently do not care about airline safety. That's good to know. Should we pause there and kind of get into our topic, or should I just continue to bang through this?
I think this is good because this is like, I want to just, when Steve is saying over and over, this is what I think, and all of this has practical application. Like, I just see this as one large conversation. When he's saying, don't show me what your values are, show me your budget. What we're saying is, in a society where capital is king, where people are trying to consolidate wealth by starving poor people, this is the value system of the Conservative Party, where they're consolidating this money. I mean, that's what we're learning here, is who they will let unalive, who they will socially engineer out of existence to consolidate wealth, to, as we enter late stage capitalism / the rise of authoritarianism. And the donor class, the capitalists, don't want to feel the pain of the declining American empire. Who are they willing to sacrifice so they can live in the style they've become accustomed? That's what this budget is telling. It's chilling.
Yeah, and somebody in the chat just said, yeah, the richest people taking away things from the poorest people who don't have things now. It's a really good point. I think Eve's going to do some mod announcements for us. Good morning, Eve. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fabulous. Still battling this cold a little bit, but, maximum effort, baby.
Appreciate you doing the work, friend. What you got for us?
I've got a little mod announcement. Good morning, y'all. I'm here to remind you to please support our amazing hostess with the mostess. He's our meritorious mediator mitigating MAGA machinations. And he's accompanied by his lovely co-host, the fabulous fan favorite forever, Felice.
Oof.
And they're out here every day with that fiery feral fist for freedom, bringing you facts over feelings because facts still matter and they always will. You can find the pay apps in the link tree of their bios. And Facts has the HQ and Discord link. You can reach the HQ via factsstillmatter.site, where we've got live sources, community resources, and a shit ton of new merch, y'all. Seriously, you need to go and check that out. And if you're a sub, you can get 10% off that merch. It's one of our many perks. If you aren't a sub, not sure what you're doing with your life, check your priorities. Just kidding. Especially if you're placing an order, though. You might as well sign up and get that discount because it will literally pay for itself. But if you're just looking for that fun, free forum for the Facts family to frolic, then Discord is the place. If the link in the bio doesn't work, try to copy and paste it into a browser or Google. And if that still doesn't work, reach out to a moderator and we'll hook you up. When you join, please open a ticket to get verified. If you have questions about that, you can ask in the unverified lobby and we'll walk you through it. Now, if you haven't already, please click that follow or heart me up at the top of the screen next to Fax's name. You can join the team for the cost of a penny. You can do this every day and it helps keep us relevant and on the FYP. The main thing that we ask of y'all is to please just interact in the comments as well as tapping your little hearts out. It's always free to tap and share out the live. If you don't have any friends, then you should know by now to just click that copy link. It works the same as a share and no one will be the wiser. After this live stream, when you have a chance, head on over to YouTube and subscribe to Facts Still Matter there as well. You can rewatch shows for any information you missed, and subscriptions on YouTube are free, just like following your favorite creators here on TikTok. With that, I'll just say, be kind, smile at a stranger, and have a fuck your feelings kind of day.
Thank you, Eve, for that awesomeness. I appreciate you every day, friend. Eve and I tend to text over the weekend or when I have an idea pop into my head for merch, and we always have a little back and forth. So all the new merch that you've seen that's been added in recent weeks, you can thank her for that. So thank you, friend. I appreciate you very much. You ready for your ride?
I am.
That's the best.
And also, thank
right.
you, Sarah, for the $5 on Venmo. Appreciate it so much. Love the lavender top. Thank you so much. I appreciate the support. You're amazing. Guys, we're almost to 150. I know it's Monday morning. Let's tap the screen, show our support. Yeah, these are Cash App and Venmo for Facts, and it's right above my head. You don't have to leave the live and go to the link tree. But the best way to support is tap the screen. Let's get the likes up and get more people in here. I'm feeling better. Thank you for asking. I've had a long week. I had a chest x-ray. I basically have a little walking pneumonia. I'm on a different type of antibiotic now and still on the same lung steroids. So I feel good.
Dude,
thank you for
seriously?
checking on me.
My gosh. Okay.
Yeah, I told you I was really sick. I knew you were
sick, but I didn't know it was that bad.
I was really sick.
Oh my gosh. Just real quick. So I wanted to mention this since we did go through this, the cuts to Medicare, Medicaid. Again, remember what the budget tells us. The budget tells us that there are obviously going to be cuts to Medicare and Medicaid because the math just doesn't math without it. So Jason Smith, who is a Trump advisor, was on Fox News Sunday, and this was his quote. The president has been very clear he does not want to cut benefits for individuals on Medicaid, Medicare. He wants to make sure illegals are not receiving public assistance through these benefits. So again, do not believe what they tell you. Believe what's in